Welcome to Utmost Outdoors Australia, everybody. Quick Q&A. Why did I move to Australia? Met Carol about 10 years ago, and she's born and raised here in Sydney, Australia. So it's her turn to be close to family now. And it's also a tropical paradise. So, that's cool too. I'll just show you the latest shop here. House is a bit of a mess, but next question would be, when am I planning on coming back to Canada? Let me just set you guys down here. Hopefully that's a good frame of everything. I don't know when I'm going to be coming back to Canada. I always am going to have a little place in my heart for that country, and I'm still a Canadian and plan on returning, but probably not for the next 18 months. For now, I don't know exactly what's coming up next. I just know that I'm going to focus on making the most of this. And while I'm here in Australia, I might as well focus on enjoying Australia until the time comes to either visit Canada or move back to Canada, or whatever happens, we'll see. So, what have I done? I got off the airplane back in November and hopped on a train. It was excellent public transport. You basically take your credit card, tap on, tap off, go to a bus, and there's a bus every 5 minutes or a bus every 10 minutes. It's really great. I'm living about 90 minutes north of Sydney, so on Australia's east coast. And pretty much after getting groceries one day, I decided that I needed a car. So first thing I did was I went out and I bought a 2005 Honda CR-V. 4,500 Australian dollars, and basically I was looking for a Toyota RAV4, maybe a Subaru Outback, whatever kind of thing. I wanted something that was a bit of a balance, cheap enough on fuel. I can justify driving long distances because where I am, apparently there's no gold. It's like you Google, where's the gold in this area, and it's all a 4-hour drive in one direction that isn't right here. But so balance that fuel economy with a bit of practicality, all-wheel drive. It's not like I can do 4x4ing with it, but it's a good balanced car. It'll work for camping in the back of. And I have made contact with a local that wants to take me out gold prospecting sometime in February. So hopefully I'll have some little chunks of gold to show for that, but also I'll learn how to not die. I got this right here. Killer Oz. This was a Christmas present. And the other day in the backyard, here's a picture of a spider, everybody. Watch out. Funnel web spider. This is like a pit bull of spiders. This thing is beefy. And yeah, that thing, I don't know, it was sizable little fella. Apparently extremely dangerous, and you need to go to a hospital, definitely, if you get bit by one. And there's snakes that are this has enough venom to kill 500 human beings, and a lot of dangerous things. I'm used to the bears and wolves, cougars, whatever, but yeah, all the creepy crawly things, not so comfortable with. Now, that being said, if you go camping in Canada, you don't just get eaten by a bear and die. It's a Canadian thing. Everybody goes camping all the time, and while yes, you can get eaten by a bear. There was a couple just this fall that were killed by a bear in Northern Banff National Park there. Horrible, tragic, but the likelihood that happens to you is an order of magnitude less than being struck by lightning. So yes, bears are dangerous, but it's not like you go outside and you die. Same thing kind of applies here. So amongst all the scary pictures of this book, they say number of fatalities attributed to the Sydney funnel web between 1927 and the release of an antivenom in 1981, 13. So it's not really that dangerous to go outside, but common sense sometimes isn't. So the things a Canadian might do would be different than the things an Australian might do. One example being apparently eating twisties. The inferior version of Hawkins cheesies. Lovely. So, one thing that a Canadian might do is walk up their path to their car, leave the house for an hour, come home when it's dark, and just walk down the path to their house. And I have learned that in the dark, you either have a headlamp or a stick. Because the orb weaver spiders, these are big chunky spiders, apparently not super dangerous, but Charlotte, our local orb weaver, built a web like this big, like crazy, majestic, huge web that was not there 1 hour earlier. And it's like, this thing hides all day. The second the sun goes down, it builds a giant web in the middle of our path and just hangs out there, murdering insects. Good job. But as I'm walking down to the path, I decide at the last minute, take the first 2 steps, I'm like, I should probably, go to my cell phone, turn on the cell phone light, and I turn on this light and I'm standing face to face with, from a Canadian perspective, the biggest spider I've ever seen in my life. So those sorts of things, I want to learn from this guy when he takes me out gold prospecting and actually not just do something stupid and die. So there'll be a little bit of learning how to camp mixed in with the actual gold mining side of things. Yeah, so that's coming up. As far as the boat is concerned, I'm on a bit of a budget right now, and I'm not going to go out and buy an outboard and, build a boat or buy a boat or anything. There's so much water where I am. It's absolutely incredible. There's a huge area called the Brisbane Waters, and maybe it's Brisbane Water, whatever it is. You can Google it, north of Sydney. And it's basically a big sheltered area, saltwater, sailboats, boats everywhere, and just looks incredible. And then of course, I'm about a 15-minute drive from the Pacific Ocean, surf beaches, golden sands, as far as you can see. It's incredible. So I'm going to be doing some swimming, I'm going to be doing some surfing, free diving, all of the things ocean related. Those will replace my Canadian mountains. But as far as one thing I loved to do in Canada, which was sort of my creative outlet, was to go to my garage, go to my shop. I had a metal brake, I had a welder, and I could take things and ideas that I had gold mining related and turn them into reality. I don't have a shop here. I don't have room for a shop here. Basically, I have a little patio area under the house. So the house is on a hill. I park up here. I walk past Charlotte's Web to the front door, and then the house sits like this. And under the house here is where I would be doing all of this, gold mining experiment stuff. But instead of a whole garage, I have this cardboard box here. Hopefully that's in frame. But I got a 3D printer. I'm going to be taking that out of the box, setting it up, and figuring out how all of that works soon enough. But with that 3D printer in this area under the house where I can have a couple tubs of water and do some tests, there's a couple things I want to do. One, gold dredging is something that I'm really interested in. I can't dredge here in Australia, but I've been watching all the shows about Bering Sea Gold and Nome and all that dredging stuff. And I'd like to sort of do a bit of a dive into how a gold dredge works, what type of venturi is the most efficient. With a 3D printer, for example, as a scale model, I could have an electric dredge. Right here, this is an impeller. I could take this impeller, change the size of it and the shape of it and everything, and make one of these slip onto an existing bilge pump. So if your bilge pump uses 200 watts, build an impeller, stick it on, it would still need to use just 200 watts. You can just put a bigger impeller and burn out your pump. But if the impeller was for higher pressure, lower flow, it would take the same 200 watts and maybe work better for a dredge. So I've seen some guys taking like a 4,000 gallon per hour bilge pump and putting 2 in series. So one bilge pump pumps into the other bilge pump and then pumps out, and they're trying to get a little 2-inch dredge to work. And it's like, yeah, it works, but it's not amazing. What if you had the world's most efficient 3D printed venturi coupled with a really efficient closed impeller, and you had everything dialed in? That would be a really interesting thing to experiment with, to get a dredge working. And then could you basically build, this is my little idea, is a subsurface dredge that still captures fine gold really well. So instead of pumping everything all the way up to the surface, you would run everything through a sump. All of these small particles would go into a little sump and then go through a secondary underwater sluice box. Could I come up with something that would work really well and still capture fine gold, even though it was underwater? That'd be interesting. And then to expand on that, there hasn't been a proper modern day unbiased sluice study. I think 70s and 80s, there was a couple sluice studies that I believe I've read them all. But they tested a few different types of sluice matting. I don't even think they tested that many. They tested like 2 mats, but it was various riffles. It's the one where the riffle has like a 15-degree up angle like this, and then they tested the spacing of the riffles. But they did a series of tests, different flow rates, and they determined how much gold percentage each one caught. Very useful. But today, you've got rubber mat manufacturer A, rubber mat manufacturer B, and behind these, there's sort of like this dogmatic following to the point where a lot of the Facebook groups, the old forums, basically banned. No mat questions. We don't even want to hear about this. Like, I'm sick of it. And I'm a little sick of it too, because it's the same question. Which mat's best? Is it A, or is it B, or is it C? And all of the answers start coming in, and some of them are good answers, some of them are well-intentioned answers, but it's all just like, I try this one and it's good, or I think this one's better than that one. And then it devolves into this thing where it's like, you're going to lose all the gold in the world if you use that one. You got to use this mat, it's better. And what we need is an unbiased thing where we can actually test these things head to head properly. And in order to do that, we need an experimental design where I can have the exact same setup, slope, flow, and feed rate all metered. So the feed, instead of just shoveling it in with a shovel, I need some sort of a 3D printed machine that can meter out a 5-gallon bucket of concentrates at 1 kilogram per minute, 5 kilograms per minute, 10 kilograms per minute, whatever it might be, consistently to the point where I can run the test, see what's in my sluice mat, do a clean out, dry it out, weigh it on a scale, what's the number, and then repeat the test exactly the same way and get the same number the second time. Because if I have a 5% difference from one test to the next identical test, and then I test a different mat and it's 5% better, is that just experimental error or what? So if I wanted to test 3 slopes, 3 flows, and 3 feed rates, that's 27 tests just for one type of matting. So this could be getting me way in over my head, just so I want to automate it as much as I possibly can. Obviously, this whole series on mats would have to be non-sponsored, no ads in the middle of the videos. It just, like, it's got to be, you can't have any built-in biases where somebody sends me a mat and $1,000, and then I'm like, yeah, so this mat's, yeah, it's the best, counting my money. You guys know I wouldn't do that, but I think you have to build that into the design of something like this if you want it to actually be valid. So just looking at my little notes of things I was trying to talk about. Yeah, scientific sluice study would be good. The gold dredging thing would be good. The 3D printer is going to play a big role in the creative outlet because I don't have a big shop, so everything's just going to be scaled down. Potentially even 3D print mats. So if you have a particular mat that might work amazingly well on Cape Disappointment gold, I brought some Alberta gold so we can test with the good stuff and we can see how these things work. It'll be interesting. I don't know what the next video is going to be. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and at some point I'll be out camping, I'll be out gold mining, and we're doing a whole bunch of different testing under the house, gold mining, 3D printing related stuff. Let me know in the comments if you have any ideas for me. I'm interested in continuing to make videos here for a while, and I just have to not buy expensive things till my work visa fully clears and everything. By the way, this video, you'll notice there's no mid-roll ads. It is not monetized. I'm allowed to continue working, my Canadian YouTube thing. I just can't get paid for any videos that are filmed here in Australia because that would be considered potentially work. And until that visa clears, I just don't want to, have any trouble. So enjoy the ad-free content, and see you next week. Cheers, everybody. I'm excited about this.